Welcome back to the Boot Tragedies. We're back with the top 20 list. This is from 10 to 6 right here. Then we'll get to the top 5 will be the last video. Quick recap of who we had. Surprises on the list. We had Cesar Ruiz, Paulson Adebo, Kalen Saunders, Marcus May, Andres Pete. And after that, we went Juwan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, Alante Taylor, Jamal Williams, and then Tyrann Mathieu finishing at 11. And now at number 10, we going with the first offensive lineman to crack the top 10 this year, Eric McCoy. Now, Eric McCoy has been super reliable for the Saints. This is 4 seasons in the NFL. Rookie season, 16 out of 16 games. The next season, 16 out of 16 games. The year before last, 12 out of 16. And this past season, 13 out of 17 games. So he's been super reliable for the Saints, only missing a couple games in his career. And now when he misses those games, the Saints offensive line does not look the same, doesn't look remotely the same. He's a key piece in that offensive lineman. You can say that he's our second best lineman, and you won't get an argument from anybody. He's that good. He's obviously taken over that role as the second best offensive lineman on the team. I think he's really good. He's going to start getting Pro Bowl votes, in my opinion, very soon. Hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet in his career, but I think with a new quarterback, going to kind of shine some light on the offensive line this season. I think he'll make his first Pro Bowl. That's my prediction for Eric McCoy this year. I think he's a really good player, and the Saints offensive line is just not the same without him. When he was hurt, we put Ruiz at center, we put some other guys at center, and it was just never the same. Him at center, now he's got a veteran quarterback behind him. Even though Andy Dalton's a veteran quarterback, it's just not the same. I think he's going to have an excellent season for the Saints, and we need him. He's one of the most important players on this team. Obviously, I put him in the top 10. That's how important I think he is. That's how good of a season I think. He's just hitting his prime. He's 25 years old. He's going to have a really good season for the Saints, and, man, we need him to be just what he's been doing. Be a reliable center, not even above average, a really good center in the NFL. I'm not going to call him elite yet, but I think he's approaching that level. Maybe in 2 to 3 years when he hit his peak, when he hit his prime, he'll be an elite center. Right now, he's really good, and the Saints just need him to continue to be really good for him. And next up on the list, number 9. A guy that, man, the way he was playing last year, he had a chance to finish top 3. And I'm not even like dragging this or stretching this to say that, he's a top 3 player on the Saints team. But the way he was playing when he was out there, I really do believe he could have finished in the top 3 of this year's list. And that's linebacker, not DeMario Davis, but Pete Werner. Now, Pete Werner, the first 4 or 5 games, you can look at my old videos. I'm not like new to this. I said he was the best player on the Saints team. Or not the best player. He was playing better than anyone. Playing better than anyone on the Saints defense. That included Lattimore, DeMario Davis, Cam Jordan, David Onyemata, whoever you want to name. Pete Werner was the best player on that Saints defense for like 3 to 4 games. And it's okay to admit that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously he got injured last season. Once he got injured, guys stepped up in his place. I don't really mention those guys' names because they went to the ops. So guy stepped up in his place. He came back. He still had a really good season. He played in 12 games last year, 80 tackles, 56 solo. If he plays in 17 games, that's easy, 100-plus tackle season, probably over 75 solo tackles or something like that, and that's really good for a guy that's really not your number 1 linebacker. He's really I can't call him a backup because 2 linebackers start, but he's really your guy next to your all-pro guy, your Pro Bowl guy, DeMario Davis. But Pete Werner was not outshining him, but at least playing up to par as DeMario Davis last season when he was out there. Now, a common theme with the Saints. He has to stay healthy. He has to stay on the field. If he does that, he's going to be really good. The linebacker depth won't be as good as it was last season, so he's definitely going to have to stay out on that field. And even when he came back, it never was the same. He never looked like the same guy, that explosion. If I remember correctly, it was an ankle injury. So those ankles are tricky, man. They can just get re-injured at any time. So hopefully he comes out there. He's healthy this offseason. And he's ready to go because he was having an amazing campaign, sophomore campaign. I think this is going to be a really good season for him. And hopefully the defensive line up front give him some help. But that's a different story for a different day, man. Those defensive tackles are going to have to help. And number 8 on the list, a guy that I'm sure all y'all were expecting to be on this list. All y'all were probably waiting to see where he was going to be on this list. And it's a new guy, once again. Number 8, your franchise quarterback, a guy we paid a lot of money to come in and play quarterback, and that's no other than Derek Carr. Derek Carr coming in on the list at 8, I think that's solid. Now, usually, you want your quarterback to be in the top 3. When we had Drew Brees, he was probably top 3 for every season he was here. But eventually, you got to stop comparing guys to Drew Brees, even though I just did that. But if you look at Winston and Dalton, you would never put those guys maybe this high. You would never put those guys at number 8 on the list. So, obviously, Carr, he's coming into a good team around him already, and he comes in at number 8 on this list last season. Now, this is probably Carr's one of his worst seasons in the NFL, outside of his early years. He had 3,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. But the year before that, 4,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Now, let's just do a comparison side by side. Last year, Carr, 3,500 yards and some change. The Saints as a unit, 3,900 yards. Then 24 touchdowns for the Saints, 24 touchdowns for Derek Carr, 14 interceptions for Derek Carr, 14 interceptions for the Saints. Now, Derek Carr did only play in 15 games. Obviously, Saints quarterbacks played in 17. That's Dalton, that's Winston, and that's Taysom Hill. That's all their stats combined, and they basically equal what Derek Carr did in 15 games last season. So, obviously, Derek Carr outperformed all three, but I mean, that's not saying much. Let's be honest. That's not saying much. But I do think he's going to have not as good as the years he had 2 years ago with the 4,900 yards and stuff like that. But I do think he'll have 4,500 yards, something like that. Maybe more, maybe less. Who knows? But I do think he's going to be very, very good for the Saints. Obviously, he's going to be one of the most important players, if not the most important player on the roster, just because he's the quarterback. That guy has to be your most important player. Has to be one of your best players. I think Derek Carr, falling to number 8, is a really, really good spot for him right now. You can't really put him in top 5 because you haven't done it in a black and gold. I'm not just going to put a guy that's never played a snap for the Saints in the top 5. Didn't really want to put him in the top 10 because he hasn't played a snap for the Saints. But obviously a guy that's proven over NFL that he's here. I mean, like a guy like Aaron Donald came into the team, I'm putting him at number 1. Pat Mahomes came, I'm putting him at number 1. But he's not them. So he falls to number 8 on the list. I think that's a good spot for him. Now, number 7, this one's kind of funny. A guy that the Saints really, really need. Very important. All the things I said about Derek Carr, I mean, it applies to this guy as well. And coincidentally, they play the same position. Kind of. Not really. But number 7 on the list, man. Number 7 on the list is Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is number 7 on the list. What can't you say about Taysom Hill? I'm just going to go through some of his stats from last season. 575 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. Even throwing 9 catches last season. Hey, he also threw for 240 yards. Oh, but that's not it. He also had 3 returns for 70 yards. That's how important he is to the Saints team. This man has kick return yards, passing yards, rushing yards, receiving touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns. This man's on punt cover. Like this, he does everything for the Saints. And no, just because Derek Carr is 8 and he's 7, I'm not saying Taysom Hill's a better quarterback than Derek Carr. But importance to their role and how well they do their role, I think Taysom Hill does his job better than Derek Carr does his job. Now, obviously, Taysom Hill's job isn't as important as Derek Carr's job is going to be, but Taysom Hill is really, really good in this role. And I don't have to preach how good Taysom Hill is. We all know Taysom Hill is really, really good at what he does. He can't be a full-time quarterback, in my opinion. That's just never going to be the case. But sparingly, 2 to 3 passes a game, 8 to 10 rushes a game, maybe a catch a game. He's really, really good at that role, and he's really, really hard to stop. Athletic, strong, all of the above. Man, Taysom Hill is one of the best players on this roster, and he comes in at number 7 on this list. Quick recap. We got Eric McCoy, number 10. Pete Werner, number 9. Derek Carr, number 8. And at number 7, we got Taysom Hill. And at number 6, a guy that I wanted to put in the top 5. But the top 5, I think, is just solidified. I don't think the top 5 has changed in a minute. Top 5 hasn't changed in a minute. But this guy I wanted to. But I didn't know who I could take out. I didn't know who I could take out in this top 5. So I put him at number 6. And this guy, I think is going to have an extremely, extremely good season this year. I'm thinking like all pro level type season from this kid. And that's Chris Olave. Going into his second season in the NFL, I think he's going to put up at least Pro Bowl type numbers, but I'm thinking like all pro type numbers. I think he's going to have that good of a season. Just look at last year as a rookie with inconsistent quarterback play. He only played 15 games. You got Andy Dalton out here throwing to you, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill sometimes. He put up 72 catches, 1,042 yards, 4 touchdowns. Finished fourth in the Rookie of the Year voting. Fourth, should have been third. They let Purdy get ahead of him, who played like 6 games, but he's a quarterback. That's neither here nor there. But I think he's going to have a really, really good season, man. I'm like super, super high, man. Like 100-catch season, 1,500 yards is a possibility. I think that's the high end of what he can do. And now it all depends on Michael Thomas. If Michael Thomas is going to be healthy the whole year, then it might come down. But if Michael Thomas gets hurt, Michael Thomas plays 8 to 10 games, then hey, it might just shoot up and go crazy. He's got consistent quarterback play. You got Pete Carmichael that kind of knows what he can do now. Pete Carmichael's had a year calling plays with this team. So everything should work out in his favor, man. But I think he has all the talent in the world to pick. Great pick for the Saints. Great trade up for the Saints to get Chris Olave. Just good in all sense of it. Like, I just think Chris Olave is going to be one of the best players on this team. Has a chance to be the best offensive player on this team. Really, I think he's that good, that special. I don't think he's going to be better than Alvin Kamara, even though he's going to be suspended, miss some game. But, man, Chris Olave, sky's the limit for him. Sky's the limit for Chris Olave. I think he's going to have a really, really good season. And that just wraps up that's 10 through 6 right there, man. Top 5 is going to be next. Top 5 is going to be tomorrow. Top 5 is going to be interesting because somebody's getting left out, maybe. Well, not really. Not really. Everybody knows the top 5. If you watch the top 20 so far, you probably know the top 5 is. We're going to do a countdown one more time from 20, man. You had 20. You had Cesar Ruiz. 19, Paulson Adebo. 18, Kalen Saunders. 17, Marcus May. 16, Andres Pete. Then after that, you have 15 through 11. You had Juwan Johnson at 15, Rashid Shaheed at 14, Alontae Taylor at 13, Jamal Williams at 12, and Tyrann Mathieu at 11. Then our top 10, the video right now, you got Eric McCoy at number 10, who I think is going to be really, really good. Pete Werner at number 9, Derek Carr at number 8, Taysom Hill at number 7, and Chris Olave at number 6. And like I've been doing with each video, biggest boom and biggest bust potential on this list. Not going to be hard for bust potential when you go in top 10 guys. It's really hard for them to not really have a really good season. But if I had to pick, just because I've been picking, that's the guy that could be the biggest bust on here. And I'm not going to say he's going to be have a bust of a season. But I'll go with Taysom Hill. And I'll give you some reasons why. Because Derek Carr's here. His role could just be not shut out, but it could be very, very limited. You got to realize. You know, he plays running back sometimes. We're going to have Alvin Kamara. We got Jamal Williams. You got Kendre Miller. That's going to take away that a little bit. Then he used to play tight end. We got Juwan Johnson. And we got Foster Moreau. So that's going to take away that. He played quarterback a little bit. We added Derek Carr. Jameis Winston is the backup. That's going to take away that. So I'm not saying he's going to bust. You got Rashid Shaheed in the return game. So I'm not saying he's going to bust, as a player. But I think his role might just be, I won't say diminished, but it just might not have enough touches. There's only one ball out there. It's only one ball. And he got a lot last year, but it's a lot to spread around this year. So maybe his role is going to be slightly tweaked, and he'll be a less of a. I mean, we're going to still use him for sure to take some packages and things like that, but just won't be, as evident, won't be as frequent as it was in these past seasons. So I will put him as the most bust potential. I don't think he's going to bust by any chance, of the imagination. I just have to put somebody in there. And biggest boom potential, this one's tough. I mean, you got Derek Carr with all these weapons, new scenery. Maybe he goes crazy and becomes a top 3 player. You got Olave, who already said is going to be there. But I think the biggest boom potential, Pete Werner. Like I said, last year, coming up number 9 on this list this year, last year was a top player on the Saints defense for me the first 4 or 5 games of that season, or however long it was, but then got injured, and it was just kind of never the same. Still pretty good, but didn't have that quick explosion that I seen him, in the first couple games of the season. I think he has the biggest potential to kind of overtake DeMario this year as the best linebacker on his team. I think he's that good, has that much talent. Obviously, DeMario's getting up there in age, so eventually, you want DeMario to come down and meet Pete Werner, and it goes, the opposite direction eventually. DeMario has something to say about that. Obviously, I haven't mentioned him yet because, he's going to be in the top 5 players because he's still having really, really good, career with the Saints so far. But that's your 5, man. McCoy, Werner, Carr, Taysom, Olave. Let me know what y'all think about those 5 guys. That's 10 through 6. Top 5 is coming, and we'll see where we rank the guys. We know we got a lot of good guys in the top 5, Pro Bowl guys, Hall of Fame caliber guys in that top 5, and we'll see where they fall. But that's 10 through 6, man. Thank y'all for tuning in once again. As always, it's the Boot Tragedies, and I'm out.